Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. For today's tutorial, I'm going to show you how I made these super cute toasted mozzarella cheese pizza topped cupcakes. These are really fun to make, and I hope you enjoy watching me do it and learn a few little tricks. So what we do first is we're going to make the pizza crust. Now I'm just using fondant that has some Tylo mixed in it, and I just used, I'm trying to think, this was a little while ago. I might have just used a warm brown food coloring that's a little darker than a tan or than an ivory. So I think I used a warm brown. And I'm just rolling it out to about a quarter of an inch, eighth of an inch to a quarter of an inch thick. Because you don't want it to be so thin that when it sits on your buttercream that it softens up. You know what I'm saying? You want it to hold its shape and you want it to look like substantial enough so that people know what it is. So I'm just using a round, like it's a biscuit cutter or a circle cutter, and I'm just cutting them out. I compared them to the size of the top of my cupcakes, which I don't show you yet. I will show you how I do the frosting a little bit later in the video, but when I did this, I had already frosted them, so I knew how wide they needed to be. So I just used a cutter that was just about the same size as the buttercream on top. Now I'm just using a ball tool and just kind of creating a domed effect to it. The purpose for that is to create the rise or the edge of the pizza, like you get in a regular pizza, and to hold the quote-unquote pizza sauce inside of the pizza. We're going for as realistic as I can get for a cupcake topper. As realistic as possible. And this was, I believe I did 2 dozen of these. If not a few more. It might have been 2.5 dozen. So I'm just doing the same thing to all of those. And then I just set those aside to firm up while I worked on some other projects. Because this cake actually went, or these cupcakes went with a cake that was a pizza themed cake that had, I can't even explain it. It had a 3D slice of cake that was a character, or a slice of pizza that was a character on top. And unfortunately, I didn't film all of that. I wish I had because they worked really cute together. But we're going to focus on the cupcakes that matched. So I'm just using a round tip, and I am putting quite a bit on each of these because we're going to place them on top of parchment paper upside down on a flat surface and kind of just flatten it. You want your buttercream to kind of fill out, to press out to the edges of your cupcakes all the way around. And do this with all of them. And what we're going to do is put them into the freezer to completely firm up. And that is what is going to give us our base for our toppers. Now, I am a believer in having enough buttercream on a cupcake. I don't like a whole lot. Like, I don't need the buttercream to be twice or as tall as the cupcake itself. But I do want enough. You know, I don't like it when you get just a little squirt of buttercream. That's not enough for me. So I do enough so that it's got about, I would say the buttercream is about 1/2 inch thick. And then I rolled out some red fondant that had some Tylos mixed into it also. And I'm just using a small round cutter. Those are the plunger cutters. I love those. You can get those in all kinds of shapes and sizes, even shapes you wouldn't even think of. So those are really cool to have on hand. And then I'm using my smaller ball tool to do basically the same thing I did with the pizza crust so that they have that curvature to them like a pepperoni would. That's what I'm trying to make here. It's little bitty pepperonis, miniatures. And then I'm using my color palette. That is edible food or petal dust. That is in my Amazon link, in my Amazon shopping link for my favorites in the video description. That is where I get that. And I'm just using fluffy brushes to kind of dab on the color. I use some of the deeper red, that deeper, richer, like brick red, I believe. Maybe a little burgundy and some of the brown also. And just make sure you get all of them coated a little bit because you're going for a little realistic. So you need to have, not just a solid color. And this right here is just a block of frozen, almost solidly frozen fondant. That's all that is. That's how you make your shredded mozzarella. This trick is so easy. It is just, I love it. Highly recommend. So work with it while it is chilled. If it starts warming up, put it back into your freezer for a couple minutes, and here you have your shredded mozzarella. Isn't that cool? And then I just put them on parchment paper, kind of spread it around so that when it comes to room temperature, they don't stick together because they're going to have a little condensation as they thaw out. And then that is just red buttercream. I just used my regular buttercream, added some red food coloring to it. I don't know if you can anymore. It'll be interesting to see how we adapt to this whole food color dye thing. And then I just melted it in the microwave. That way it spreads into your crust and it doesn't have you don't have to use your spatula and then you have your spatula marks. It's actually melted, so it really looks like pizza sauce. And I just cut a small hole in the tip of the bag because you don't want too much coming out at a time. It can get a little messy. I have one little spot there that got a little messy, but use your finger on your other hand to plug the hole as you're going from one topper to the next if you need to. I had to put these back into the freezer to firm up just a little bit because they were thawing out a little quicker than I could work with them. But I'm just making sure that they are separated. That's all I'm doing there. Just make sure that you have the individual shreds of mozzarella instead of just big chunks. And then it doesn't look like I'm just making mini pizzas. Really, it's the same. I don't know. I think it's so cute. I love these more realistic types of desserts. I know I do a lot of tiered cakes, but it's fun to kind of do something, show you a little something different sometimes because I don't always do the tiered cakes. I just don't tend to make tutorials out of them all the time. So just get your, however much you want of the fondant, shredded fondant on top of your little pizza toppers. I wanted to make sure that you could still see the red sauce through it. So I did not cover them completely, if that makes sense. There's no measurement here. Just kind of eyeball it. And when you feel like it looks like enough, then you can stop. You could also make these, little olives. You could do little mushrooms if you wanted to. You could do whatever toppings you want on your little toppers. But I figured since they're so small, a few small pepperonis would get the point across. Because the cake had sliced green onions and mushrooms and stuff on it. Not real ones, fondant ones. So that's where I kind of had the other toppings. And then I'm just putting on our pepperonis. I did 3 to 5, maybe 6 on each of them. Again, this is a time when the rule of odd numbers kind of helps. You do odd numbers, it looks a little bit better, spacing wise. Then I'm just using my blowtorch to melt the cheese, the quote cheese, the shredded fondant. Now don't hold it in one spot for too long, but you want it to get golden brown. If it bubbles a little bit, that's fine. You just basically don't want it to catch on fire if you can help it. And I was kind of concentrating on the edges of the crust also because I wanted it to be more of a cooked tan color or light brown color, not just the monochromatic brown that we had to begin with, because that would make it not look realistic again. And make sure you have a blowtorch on hand in your little toolkit of supplies. If this is something you're doing as a job or wanting to start branching out and doing some more fun things, a blowtorch with some propane, definitely add that to your list of tools to have. I use blowtorches all the time. I even use them to smooth my buttercream on my cakes. If you see my other videos, you will see that I use that a lot, actually, to heat up my metal scrapers to get your buttercream smoothed out a little bit more easily. And then once we have those all ready, all toasted, I kind of let them sit for a little bit because the heat's going to soften the fondant a little bit. I wouldn't put it in the refrigerator. I'd let it sit for an hour or two maybe. And then once our buttercream has firmed up, we can just pull them straight off of the parchment paper or wax paper, whichever one you use. I just like parchment paper. Just pull them straight off, and then you have your nice flat tops. Nice circular pattern and flat, smooth tops. Then I just added a little bit dollop of buttercream, not a lot, just to make sure that our toppers actually stick. They would over time, if they sat at room temperature, they would kind of work together. especially if the buttercream is chilled, it's going to have some condensation, and that's going to, water attaches fondant to things. So that would help also. But a little dab of buttercream's not going to hurt anything. And there's our final edible fondant pizza toppers. A lot of words to describe it. Anyway, this was fun to do. I hope you liked it. I hope you learned something. And we'll catch you on the next one.